Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good morning and welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Brooke Martin. We start this morning as a community stunned by what happened Thursday night into Friday morning. A gunman opened fire at the FEDEX ground facility around 11 p.m. Thursday in what's believed to be the largest mass murder in Indianapolis history. It's the third mass shooting in Indianapolis this year and follows last year's record number of homicides in the city. It also comes as the White House is pushing for new federal gun restrictions. In a statement Friday morning, Mayor Joe Hogsett said the city and the nation are grieving once again.
Grief for the families of those killed, grief for the employees who have lost their coworkers, and grief for the many Americans struggling to understand how tragedies like this continue to occur again and again. They joined the Indianapolis community in trying to understand this senseless violence. And it seems to me that beyond the need of comfort for the grieving, we must guard against resignation or even despair. The assumption that this is simply how it must be and that we might as well get used to it. We need the courage that compels courageous acts that push past weariness.
And this reaction from Josh Bain, the Republican city council member representing the area around the FedEx hub. Like the rest of Indianapolis, I was devastated to wake up and learn of the tragic events that transpired in our community. An attack like this will send ripples of grief throughout our community for a long time to come. He goes on to say, I ask our neighbors around the city to surround the survivors of this attack and the families and loved ones of those lost with prayers, care, and kindness. We will all need it in the days ahead. Governor Eric Holcomb has ordered flags in Indiana lowered to half-staff through Tuesday to honor the victims in the shooting. He also issued a statement Friday saying this is another heartbreaking day, and I'm shaken by the mass shooting at the FedEx ground facility in Indianapolis. In times like this, words like justice and sorrow fall short in response for those senselessly taken. Our thoughts are with the families, friends, co-workers, and all those affected by this terrible situation. Friday morning, we also talked to Democratic State Senator J.D. Ford.
Just really want to send, my heartfelt, thoughts out to all the families that are affected by this tragedy. Just seeing that news this morning and knowing that there have been 22 mass shootings nationwide so far, this past month alone, 3 here in Indianapolis. It's just so heartbreaking.
We already got word that the White House has been in touch with leaders in Indianapolis. This is a headline that will dominate responses, like I said, local, state, and national level in the days to come, possibly weeks. What is your message to your constituents and the greater community?
Well, so this week we passed Senate Resolution 39, which basically was saying that the policy of the state of Indiana is to keep, and the right to bear arms. And look, everybody supports the Second Amendment, but when does your right to bear arms stop at my right to live? And I think that's the question that we are all grappling with this morning. And, we really need to take action. We have, the legislative session is currently going on. We need to take this up.
The White House has also lowered flags to half-staff for the victims of the FedEx shooting. President Biden issued a statement saying gun violence pierces the soul of the nation. He also called gun violence an epidemic in America. Just 2 weeks ago, the president said he would issue executive orders to help crack down on some guns.
Yet again, we have families in our country that are grieving the loss of their family members because of gun violence. There is no question that this violence must end.
President has spent his entire career working to address gun violence, and his determination to act has been redoubled by senseless killings we've seen both in mass shootings like this and in the lives lost to the epidemic of gun violence every single day in communities across our country. We can't afford to wait as innocent lives are taken.
We also have a statement from Republican Senator Mike Braun. He says our hearts are mourning for the individuals who have senselessly lost their lives, all of their loved ones and their co-workers at FedEx who will be dealing with this tragedy for a long time to come. Thank you to the members of law enforcement who put their lives on the line and responded heroically in this situation. And this from Republican Senator Todd Young. The shooting at FedEx was a senseless tragedy. Indiana and the nation mourn for the lives lost and forever changed Thursday night. Coming up, will Indiana schools benefit from the state's new budget windfall? The $2 billion question that lawmakers have to answer this week. Next on All Indiana Politics. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics. We turned our attention back to the State House and that remarkable announcement this week. Indiana will have about $2 billion more to spend in next year's budget. The updated revenue forecast comes as lawmakers are trying to put the final touches on the state's next two-year budget. Lawmakers are hoping to wrap up their session this week, 1 week earlier than originally planned. The final days are almost certain to focus on how much of the new money will go to education, and will it be earmarked for teacher raises?
You've always felt like teacher pay, education funding has always been the priority of both of our caucuses to the administration. We have confidence that if we put more dollars towards K-12, that those dollars, like they did in 2019, will get in the hands of teachers. But we will be very focused on that issue in the coming days.
And we welcome in State Senator Eddie Melton. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Senator Melton, you say the current GOP budget doesn't go far enough. Where, in your opinion, does it fall short?
Well, let's start with the House version that came over to the Senate a few weeks ago. In their version of the budget, there was a significant amount of decreases in agencies' budgets across the entire scope of state government. A 15% decrease in those areas, which means a lot of programs that we see across the state were being affected by that. So when that budget came over to the House, of course, from the House to the Senate, we had to address those issues, had to address also school funding formula, which is something primarily we've been discussing over the last several years.
Right.
Specifically with the school funding formula, teacher pay. Within that scope of school funding, we also have to look at the complexity index, which means that based off the feedback I hear from superintendents from across the entire state, there's a lack of equity when it comes down to our school funding.
So would you go as far to say that schools are getting cheated in this spending plan?
Well, we have enough time to fix that. Indiana is going to have a significant influx of revenue over the next couple of years. And that's excluding any type of stimulus dollars.
Right. Well, let's talk about that right now, because the new revenue forecast, as you just mentioned, projects the state will get about $2 billion more than expected. So I guess this goes to your earlier point, and I'm certain that you're hoping that it does. Will it go towards education?
Well, that's the conversation that we're having right now. Myself and my caucus, we're advocating, of course, more new dollars to the K-12 funding formula, which should go more towards educating ELL students, which are English learning students, which should go towards our special education students. The reality is, you look at the governor's teacher pay commission, they just issued a report a couple of months ago, and it instructed that there should be a significant amount of new dollars invested in K-12, and that will allow our locals to provide our teachers with a pay increase.
Do you have any hope that the conference committee will make any of these changes?
Well, I think there's an opportunity for that. I think in the Senate, there's an appetite. I've been working very closely with Senator Ryan Mishler, which is the chair of appropriations. As the ranking member on appropriations, we're going to continue to advocate and fight for K-12 funding. We want to reduce the amount of money that's issued to other educational reforms. We know that they're in the House version, they expanded the vouchers program, which we're going to families that made over $145,000 or more, I believe. And that would have taken more money away from traditional K through 12. We know that 93% of all of our children in the state of Indiana are in traditional K through 12 institutions, and we got to fund them adequately.
One final question, and again, I thank you for your time, sir. A bill to strip Indigo of some of its funding appears to have new life in the Senate. Is there enough opposition to prevent that from happening?
We're trying to gain that support to kill that language. The reality is it was attempted earlier this session and it was defeated, and they're bringing it back. Right now, the way we look at public transportation in Indianapolis is under attack. We know that with COVID-19, with so many issues, that Black and brown and underserved and poor communities are under extreme pressure. And preventing and limiting public transportation is sending the wrong message to Hoosiers and to citizens. So we're going to do all that we can. I know myself, Senators Kadora, Senator Taylor, and Senator Ford, we're going to do our best, as I know those individuals represent Indianapolis along with Senator Brough, to get that language out of the bill that's impacting Hoosiers in the city of Indianapolis.
And we'll stay on top of it. State Senator Eddie Melton, always good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And coming up, a plan by Capitol Hill Democrats to add seats to the United States Supreme Court. Is it dead on arrival or a political gift to Republicans? Our political experts weigh in. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back Republican Whitley Yates and Democrat Brian Gaddy. Thanks both for being with us. Let's start by talking guns today. We've heard the White House and other Democrats call for action on guns again after the shooting at the FedEx facility, of course. Whitley, we start with you. Does the president's push have any chance of gaining traction or winning in the courts?
I definitely do not think so. For far too long, the left has been trying to remove our Second Amendment rights and get Americans away from their guns for so long, and to try to politicize this tragedy so soon, to me, is just a travesty. To triumph and try to push a political agenda based upon the tragedy that happened here in Indianapolis is really saddening to me.
Brian, is it too soon to call for action after the shooting? The comments from the Vice President and State Senator Ford came within just hours of the shooting.
No, it's not. But our concern should first of all be with those the 8 Hoosiers that we lost and their families. This is another senseless tragedy that's not just affects our state, but affects our entire country. We just have this epidemic of violence. It's unique to our country. You don't find this going on in other countries like Canada or neighbors to the north or Europe. We just have this problem in the United States of an epidemic of violence. And how long are we going to allow ourselves to live with this cloud of violence? And the thing that's just so frightening about it, it can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere. And this is not about taking people's guns. We Democrats respect the Second Amendment, but we have to ask ourselves, how long are we going to live with this senseless violence? When are we going to do something about it? And are we going to continue to live like this? I don't think we as Americans need to politicize this with someone saying we're trying to take guns. I just think that's irresponsible. We just want Americans to be safe, and we can do that while honoring the Second Amendment, and that's what we need to do.
For those who do want stricter gun control, Brian, what's it going to take?
Well, I just think it's something where we can reason together on this issue. I mean, this is not about trying to take people's guns. This is about trying to make Americans be safer. Instead of being worried about taking guns, we ought to be worried about the violence that's taking American lives. And that's what we need to be concerned about. We have to figure out how to resolve this issue in a way that honors gun owners, but at the same time respects that every American should have a right to be able to go to their job and come home safely. They shouldn't have to worry about being shot and killed in a parking lot at FedEx or anywhere else in the United States. This is an issue that we've got to resolve, and we don't need grandstanding from the Republicans saying we're trying to take people's guns. That's just irresponsible political rhetoric, and it needs to stop.
Whitley, are there any gun control measures that Republicans should be or are backing?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think that the laws that we currently have are good enough. The truth of the matter is, specifically here in Indianapolis, the mayor has cultivated a culture of violence over the course of his leadership. And the community and people and advocates have been calling and begging for something to happen consistently for years. And so the fact that now we've had this mass tragedy here only further perpetuates the fact that we need our leadership within the city to really address the root causes and not focus on the symptoms that we're seeing now within our society.
All right, I want to take a turn and talk about the State House fight now in the budget. Whitley, if the state really is going to get $2 billion more than it expected and teacher pay is a priority, why not spend the money on teacher salaries?
So the beauty, I think, in this question is that the local school boards decide teacher salary. It is not up to the State House to do that. And the local school boards are elected by the people that live and reside within that community. And so taking that power away from the local school boards, to me, just seems irresponsible. The truth is the state legislature allocates money to each school board in each school township to do what that local elected school board deems to be responsible. So I don't think that we should remove one of the main functions of the school board and put it to the legislature.
Brian, doesn't this extra money mean the state can give to public schools and accomplish the voucher expansion some Republican House lawmakers want?
You know, what is irresponsible is the fact that Indiana ranks near the bottom in this country among the states when it comes to teacher salaries. That's what's irresponsible. And what we need to do is figure out a way to be able to compensate teachers, pay them as the professionals that they are, and be able to attract the best and brightest to be teachers. That's what we need to be worried about. And we don't need grandstanding from Republicans saying that, oh, they're trying to take power away from local school boards. What we're trying to do, what we should be trying to do as a state, is pay teachers what they deserve to be paid as the professionals that they are, and stop underpaying our teachers. That's what we need to do.
One more topic I want to address with both of you before we let you go. This week, Democrats in the House proposed expanding the U.S. Supreme Court, adding justices, packing the courts, as opponents call it. Brian, the House Speaker already says she won't call it to the floor. Is this a losing issue for Democrats?
I don't think it's a losing issue, because I don't really think it's an issue that's going to happen. This is an issue the Republicans are trying to use in order to try to scare their voters to go out and vote, because, oh, they're going to put more, add more seats to the Supreme Court.
But Brian, it was Democrats who proposed it this week.
Yeah, I know it's Democrats that are doing, but President Biden is not for it. President Biden does not support expanding the Supreme Court. And last I checked, he is the head of the Democratic Party, along with being the President of the United States. So his position is the one that ultimately matters.
Whitley, you think this is seeming to fire up Republicans?
Absolutely, because as we've seen specifically with President Biden, he'll say one thing, that he's going to be a one-term president, and do something else. There's a credibility gap between what he said when he was running for office versus him being in office. They wanted to pack the infrastructure bill with stuff from the new Green Deal and abortion. They're packing infrastructures and they're packing the freaking border with immigrants, right, in fancier cages, and now they're trying to pack the courts. The truth of the matter is, thankfully, Nancy Pelosi said that she's not going to call this up. But if it were left up to the Democratic Party, this is something that they would do. And the truth of the matter is, there is a fracture within that party, because you have one faction.
That's definitely not true. There's no fracture in the Democratic Party. So that's totally disingenuous what you just said.
What do you think the current situation is, Brian?
The current situation is that President Biden, the head of our party, and the President of the United States, and he will be a two-term president. He will not be a one-term president like the former President Trump. There is no fracture in our party. The issue is that President Biden does not support adding seats to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that's the position of our party. And the Republican Party, which is truly fractured from the QAnon conspiracy theory part, or the regular conservatives. Former Speaker John Boehner talked about that. That's the party that has the fracture, not the Democratic Party.
All right, Whitley, 15 seconds to respond.
The truth of the matter is, if there wasn't a fracture, we wouldn't have Democratic legislation asking us to pack the courts, right? If everyone abided within the Democratic Party by what the president is saying and doing,
President Biden is the head of our party, and he does not support it. So the fracture is not in our party.
Let me finish that. Let me finish that, Brian. So the truth of the matter is, you have the progressive.
All right, Whitley, we want to hear more, but we are out of time. I'm so sorry to have to cut both of you off. Brian Gaddy, Whitley Yates, thanks so much for your time. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.